Welcome to a most fantastic session. I'm really excited to be chatting with B. Joseph Pine II, the author of the fantastic book, The Experience Economy, which he has recently updated. So hi, Joe from over the pond. How are you?
I'm doing well, Eddie. It's a pleasure to meet you and to talk with you today.
Great. So last year you updated this book, this fantastic book about the experience economy, and you brought out a new edition for actually its sort of 20th anniversary. And in that update, you really highlight the time value of money. A good experience is time well spent. You also talk about transformational experience. The most valuable business experiences for people being about experiences that really transform the individual. So I'm really interested to ask you really to explain a bit more about those things and why they're so important.
Harvard Business Review Press, our publisher, says, don't call it a 20th anniversary, right? It makes it seem old, but we always talk about,
experience.
I know it is, but it's an enduring book. We have been talking about this for over 25 years now, since we discovered the experience economy. So let me describe that a little bit. I'll share my screen with you.
Great.
All right, so the new subject is really competing for customer time, attention, and money. Right, that's the focus on the new book. And basically what we say is understand that time is the currency of experiences, right? That we spend our time, as you mentioned, that's the currency of experiences in the experience economy. But the number one competitor for attention amongst any business today is in fact a smartphone, where somebody can immediately grab that phone and be out of your experience. So we need to design for that fact. And while money should never be the purpose of a company, money is actually the measure of how well you fulfill your purpose. So it's very important to manage these three things in today's experience economy. And I won't go through all the details of this. I think most all of your audience understands that we've shifted into an experience economy where experiences are a distinct economic offering. And what we add in the new re-release also is this understanding really again of time, that you can draw a line between any one of these economic offerings and understand its major distinctions. Well, the key distinction between services and experiences is about time. That services are time well saved. Where we want things nice and easy and convenient. We want things to be commoditized so we can buy them at the lowest possible price and the greatest possible convenience so we can spend our hard-earned money and our hard-earned time on the experiences that we value. And what experiences offer to customers is time well spent. Mm-hmm. As any attraction, as any theme park, as any visitor experience of any kind, you are offering time well spent to your customers. And that's what you need to focus on. I love this quote from famed experience architect John Jurdy, where he defines experiential design as the design of time, right? That's what you're doing, is you're designing the time that customers spend with you. And you need to make sure that you design that it has the value that they are seeking. And that's why we introduced this new measure of experiences. It's a measure that any experience stager can compare against any other experience stager. And by understanding the money value of time. The money value of time is basically the expenditure per minute that people are paying for the admission fee to that experience. Of course, charging for time as via an admission fee or a membership fee is what makes any offering an economic experience. So for example, if you look at a movie, and I'll use US dollars and then you can translate, but a movie is basically 2 hours on average for about 12 US dollars per ticket. And that works out to exactly 10 cents per minute. If you can get 10 cents per minute from your customers, then you're creating a good experience. But if you look at like Disney theme parks, they're at 17 cents, 23 cents. If you can get up to 20 cents per minute, right, double the price of a movie in time terms, then you have a great experience. But that's not it. We can actually, many experiences go much even better than a Disney theme park. You think about newfangled experiences, Instagrammable places like a Museum of Ice Cream that charges like 42 cents per minute. And escape rooms are down at 46 cents per minute, double the price of Disney theme parks. Obviously for much less time, but for greater money value of time, or MVT. And ideally, we'd love to include F&B and include memorabilia in these measurements, but that's not public. So all we can look at is the actual admission fees. But you can see how much more value you can create. But we can go on from there. One of the most amazing experiences people talk about is going to Hamilton on Broadway, and I think in London as well now is $5 per minute, right? $5 per minute. That's how expensive the tickets are because it's in so much demand. That's why they have a lottery that if you win the lottery, you can see it for 6 cents per minute, for less than the price of the movie, right? That's the best value and experience done. But then we can go further, right? Skydiving, look at the time it takes to jump from that airplane and hit the ground, well, hopefully land on the ground, then you're actually paying around $200 per minute for that. But there are places like iFlies that can drop that down to $43 per minute. But look at, we're several orders of magnitude more than the normal experiences you see on the left. And this gentleman here has the record for spending the most amount of money for a single experience, and that's Dennis Tito. He spent $20 million to go into space for 8 days. And if you work that out, it's $1,750 per minute. But then, of course, there's companies like Virgin Galactic and Jeff Bezos and others that are looking at democratizing spaceflight and charging only $200,000 per minute, but it's so much shorter time, $200,000 to go into space, but it's so much of a shorter time, it works out to around $2,000 per minute, even more than Dennis Tito paid. So when it comes time to MVT, the money value of time, right, the sky really is the limit. And so think about what you're charging today for the amount of time that your customers spend with you, and how can you up your experience game in order to get at some of these higher levels of value. And then lastly, we did talk about, we introduced like these 5 elements of experiences, the 5 ways to think about experiences. So you want to stage experiences that are robust, cohesive, personal, dramatic, and even transformative. So to answer your last question, Eddie, on transformative experiences, right? That's about going beyond the experience, to recognize that it's not the final economic offering, that experiences can be commoditized as well. And the next stage is to create life transforming experiences, experiences that change us in some way. Right? These are transformations. Transformations are also a distinct economic offering. Fitness centers in the transformation business, healthcare is in the transformation business, coaches of all stripes are in the transformation business. There's actually now a big thing going on about transformational travel, and where people are most open to change when they get out of the normal environments. And that's something that I think attractions can take advantage of, if we ask, why are people coming to our attraction? And, is it to have a better relationship with my wife? Is it to impress my kids and become a hero to my kids? There's things that we can do there to be able to help our guests transform. And we think about transformations, right, where experiences are time well spent. What transformations are is time well invested. That we invest our time in ways that pay compound interest, and that we gain benefit, now and into the future. That's what experiences are that change us, is transformational and transformative experiences.
And so, Joe, we were all doing pretty well at this. We'd all got our heads around the experience economy. We were understanding that consumers were changing, and they wanted much more from us in terms of the value piece, etc. And then, the 2020 curveball hit, which was coronavirus, and everything changed globally. Everything changed. I guess I'm interested to know what are you seeing? What key effects have you seen of COVID? Beyond the obvious in terms of the ability for attractions to open their doors, but what are you seeing? What are those effects of COVID that are coming through?
Well, number one effect is obvious, which is that any place people want to gather is a place nobody wants to be right now. But it doesn't mean that we lack this desire for experiences. People are social beings. We crave experiences. We understand that experiences make us happier than buying things. And one of the things that the coronavirus does is it also recognizes that we understand we're sort of at peak stuff, that we don't need more stuff, other than the consumables like toilet paper we have to hoard and whatnot. But we do recognize that it's experiences we have with our loved ones and our friends and our colleagues even that give life meaning. So the experiences are still there. They've just gone from out there to in here, from communal to familiar, from physical to digital.
Yes.
You know, the digital experiences are the ones that have exploded here, and so that there's no doubt that desire for experiences are going to come back. You look at when any place does in fact open, guess what? Immediately, people are there to the level of capacity that they allow. You know, theme parks open in some place, 25% capacity. Guess what? First day, they have 25% capacity, and they have to start turning people away. The demand is there. Now, if you open up to 100% capacity, you wouldn't get there, no, because many people are still very shy about it and want to ensure their safety. But with the possible exception of movie theaters, that has yet to really come back, probably because it's not open air, it's very enclosed and so forth. But the demand is there when it's possible for customers to not only feel safe, but to be safe in these environments.
And we've seen, certainly in the UK, I'm not sure what it's been like for you guys over there, but we've seen here, businesses adapt and try and come up with ways of kind of, facilitating people and providing experience. So we've seen, theme parks running drive-in movies, and we've seen farm parks having, becoming supermarkets and selling loo roll and all sorts of things. What examples have you seen? And can you give us some examples of perhaps some good adaptation? And I don't know if you've got some bad ones as well. We're always interested to hear the ones that happen.
Right. What they're always right. So I'll tell you an early one that I thought was wonderful is a retail store, actually in China. Right when they locked down Wuhan, China, and all that area, jewelry store called Ideal. And what they did is that the sales reps almost immediately got onto WeChat, and with all the people that they connected with and so forth. And they began basically broadcasting from the jewelry store over WeChat, showing off the items like the home shopping network, from a retail store. And in doing that, they then could drop down to talk to an individual person, when they actually wanted to buy something. So we're able to keep their sales up in this way. And I thought that was a beautiful pivot to doing, from all physical to all digital. There are now retail places that are actually, I don't know if you've heard of dark kitchens, where since we're only delivering, we don't need a full retail place. We can get a very low volume warehousey space and put a kitchen there and serve all the drivers that are going out there. And that's a dark kitchen. And there are dark retail stores coming out too, where there's no customers ever come there. It's just them doing this online and that. And I think you'll see more of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
One of the best I've seen is actually a local example right here. Minnesota, where the state where I live in the US, it's in the most northern central part, the coldest part outside of Alaska. And the Minnesota State Fair is like a big deal, right? From the agricultural heritage, it's the biggest per capita, it's the biggest state fair in the entire country. And it's open for 2 weeks at the end of August, beginning of September. And the fact that it was shut down this year, was like really a big deal that people couldn't go to the state fair. We don't need baseball, we don't need football, but we need the state fair.
Yeah.
And they did some marvelous things. They have done, like the weekends of the state fair, they did food parades where without getting out of your car, right, you drive through the state fairgrounds and you get the corn dogs and the bananas, chocolate bananas fried on a stick. And, basically state fair food is anything you can fry on a stick, but they could go through all those, get their mini donuts and so forth, and get that taste literally of the state fair. But then they also did something that I think is great too. It's a concept I call an experience in a box, right? How can you provide an experience in a box? Like not just a meal, but what's the entire dining experience you can provide? So they do that with the state fair party, right? So with the meal, you get party hats, you get napkins and plates and a tablecloth and all these, and festival things. So you can hold a state party in your own backyard, right? As if you were there, right?
Yeah.
That's one experience in box. The other one they did is crop art to go, where you could, one of the big things that they actually judge on at the state fair every year is this crop art, where you make things out of wheat and corn and so forth. And so they provide a kit where they provide the crop and the placards that you can put them on, and you can make your own crop art at home. So I think it's just a wonderful pivot. Obviously, it's not going to replace the revenue. It's not the same thing as being there, but they're doing what they can do to give that, that taste of the state fair.
And they're just, retaining some share of the voice and kind of being there,
Right.
from a PR perspective, just customer engagement, reminding people that they exist. So when they are ready to open in a more,
Right.
full way, that people haven't forgotten all about them.
Right. Exactly.
So one of the other things that's a big focus in the experience economy, your book is a lot of conversation around digital and what's happening in with the digital world. And we've seen this shift so much in the last 5 to 10 years. We've seen retail have to completely rethink how they're doing things. But it felt like as soon as lockdown came and people were really contained to their houses, it was sort of smartphones and digital engagement on steroids. Things just went crazy. And, we had some really fast thinking from the likes of Disney, who, whacked out Disney Channel in this country, really cheaply priced. And I don't know what the numbers are, but I imagine they are absolutely huge from the amount of people that engaged in that channel.
Right.
What, this mass movement during COVID times towards, digital and using your smartphones for everything, online communication, what can attractions do to kind of, be in that game and kind of engage audience through digital platforms?
Yeah, and I think it's very important to do that. I'll mention Disney too. And actually, I learned a lot of what I learned about what Disney was doing. I learned by the blooloop weekly or daily emails that they send out.
Yeah.
And I remember the one where they had many of their stars reading bedtime stories.
Yes.
I thought that was a beautiful thing.
Amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought that was amazing because it's very human. I wrote an article early on about what companies should do in the corona crisis, and one of the first thing I says, well, first be human, right? Yes. Is don't worry, but do what it takes. And we're sort of like, getting over that stage where it's back to being business, but still, be. And I thought that was just one beautiful thing that they did. But there's many things that they can do. And what I think will happen is that in many attractions may be a little more difficult than some businesses, but many live experiences, what they should do is think about a hybrid model. Mm-hmm. Where we're going digital today, but we shouldn't give that up. We should just figure out how to charge for it more and how to make that a part of what we do so that when we fully come back, we actually have a bigger revenue stream than we did before. Yeah. So let me show you another, I almost hit leave instead of share screen. Can you believe it?
Don't leave. We haven't finished.
I know. So let me share my screen again, and this is a model I've come up with to be able to think about it. Is think about it as experience application. You think about the live experience that you have, whether it's an attraction, it's a festival, it's a conference. You can think about the V-Expo, conference here, right? You've got this live experience, and it's worth selling tickets to, and so you sell tickets for people to be in the same time and the same place, but not everybody can make it. So the next stage is to take that experience and to amplify it, right? To amplify it online by selling tickets to basically a simulcast of what's going on, right? Where it's same time, but a digital place.
Yeah.
And that there is this huge thing to being live, to being there in the moment. In fact, research shows that when people know that what they're looking on video is live, then they actually pay more attention to it than if they know that it's a recording. So there is this big thing with being live. So maybe you can't charge the full ticket price. Maybe you can charge 20 to 30, 40, maybe 50% of the ticket price for people that want to be online. And a key component there is to not just simulcast it, but to add the social aspect to it. I call it Twitchification. The great value of Twitch is that not just that they're showing people playing video games, which is weird enough to think about how that is a huge spectator sport of video game playing, but to be able to talk to each other, to share information, to comment on what's going on. And so that social aspect of something that you can do much better online than you can do in live. So there's an aspect that we can do that's even better. So you got that level, then you go to the next level, which is to do an asynchronous amplification, where it's a later time, but in that digital place. So you take the video of this and then you offer it in probably in increments, like you know, at the V-Expo here, every speech, every segment can be done for a sort of incremental price. It's not going to be as much as the live simulcast, but maybe you get like 10%, maybe 20% of the fees of people that are looking at it and willing to buy it at a later date. You think of it as economic price discrimination, like you're giving coupons out, but the coupon is you have to get it later rather than get it earlier. And then finally, what you want to do, the final level of application, is to take that live event and then create videos of it and edit them down to things to sort of recap what's going on, and then share that for free on YouTube and Instagram and so forth, Facebook and that. And the idea being is get people to wish they had been there, and then of course want to be there in the future. Mm-hmm. And their festivals is a much better way of this than normal sort of physical attractions in a place. But you still think about it, are the things that you can broadcast live online? Is there people who would be willing to take a virtual trip, up and down a roller coaster on a GoPro like camera, at any time of the day, and be willing to pay for that, to see what's going on live in the park? To get, if they're like particularly people that frequently go, is there a way to get that access to what's going on right now, or to see the parade every night, or the fireworks show every night, or whatever it might be that is your particular signature moment. So I think there are ways that attractions can take advantage of a model like this.
There was some great examples of zoos and wildlife parks doing live feeding time at the zoo. So they would, stream live at whatever, 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the evening as they were going round. And actually the really interesting thing was, we're used to content in that kind of example, which is really well cut and edited and produced for TV. And actually the kind of bumpy, keeper holding one camera and a bucket under his arm kind of thing was so authentic that people just really loved it and really engaged with it, because it's just so real. And that was, I thought it was really interesting how that had such success and led to a lot of donations and a lot of support for those kind of wildlife organizations.
And I was going to use that same word. It's authentic. We followed up the experience economy with a book on authenticity, what consumers really want. Yes. And that obvious way is to render your offering authentic. And maybe they're not charging explicitly for that, but if they're getting more donations, right, where they're getting the economic value out of it.
Exactly.
You could also think about places like zoos and museums and that have members, that there are things that you can do that are members only. There's a benefit of membership that then grows that level of membership, which again brings in more revenue to the attraction.
And you're rewarding that loyal customer, that customer that's committed to you as an organization.
Exactly.
So that's great. On the other end of the scale, I'm just interested to know what you think. So my kids, who are quite young, watch this crazy phenomenon called unboxing. Do you know about unboxing?
Yes.
Wow. This was just like the most astonishing thing I've ever seen. So if you don't know what this is when they get a toy, and in my case, it's the LOL dolls, the little kind of plastic dolls that come in a round thing. And they will watch on YouTube videos of somebody else undoing one of those dolls that they've received for a gift. So at this point, they haven't even received that themselves, but they are so engaged with this product, they're prepared to watch somebody else. And for kids, that's hard, isn't it? Kids don't like other, they want the thing themselves. I think it's astonishing.
So what's the attraction equivalent of that, right? The opening of a new attraction.
Yes.
Right. Or a new retail or a new food outlet, whatever it might be, is that make a big deal of that. Not just like, okay, you can be the first day to do it, but let's broadcast that. Let's simulcast it. Let's get that effect on there as what is the unboxing of it, and reveal it in ways that create that suspense, that anticipation, and that wow effect when you get there.
Yeah. So
that relates again to the experience in a box too, is that the experience is the box. it's the unboxing of it.
It has been the toughest year for everybody across our sector. I think that goes without saying.
Yep.
And many businesses, many attractions, many experience-based businesses where they can't have people come and physically visit them have decided not to open this year. And I know there are things that people can be doing when they're not open and they're not trading to try and engage visitors and also be so ready for reopening, really have thought through what can we do in this time period when we haven't got customers coming through the door. And I'm interested to know how you think people should be engaging with visitors, and what things should they be thinking about creating for next year if they've decided to wait to next year in terms of new experiences and new ideas for the new season.
All right, so there's a way that I've been thinking about that, and I'll show this as well. It's how do you respond to the corona crisis? And this is where I mentioned I wrote this point of view paper on exactly this, where the first thing I said was first be human, right? Be human, respond to people, respond to their needs, do what you can to help people out that are maybe in crisis themselves because of that external crisis. But then there's three core things that companies need to do, and this applies to all companies, but I think in anyone in the experience business in particular. And first of all is to refresh your places, right? To take this time to be able to look for all the things that have sort of not gotten all the repair that they should have over the years. I remember last year I was in a famous theme park. I won't mention it by name. I met with some executives, and then I started walking around, and as they let me to have access to the park. And I noticed that the closer I got to the edges, that the more things started to be in disrepair, that the past had broken concrete, that the painting wasn't quite on there, that the bathrooms were not in great shape, and so forth. And now's the time to be able to do that if you have not already, is to refresh your places. And one of the ways you need to refresh it, of course, is to be safe. We're still, even if we get a vaccine by the end of the year, it's still going to take a long time to be able to get that distributed, to develop the herd immunity, to be able to truly not have to worry about catching the virus anymore, except for those with underlying conditions and so forth. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are safe, and that begins with your employees, right? Focusing on your employees. I wrote another point of view paper recently on the employee experience. If anybody wants access to those, let me know. And you need to focus on employees so that they are safe, so they feel safe, and they project that safeness to your customers. And so being safe with your employees and your customers is the number one job that you've got to do. But you also then need to show that you're safe, to demonstrate. You need to practice safety theater, as I call it. That again, not just as being safe, but showing that you're safe so people feel comfortable in their places. And then the second thing that you need to do, once you've got that down, is you need to redesign your offerings. Right, now's the time to look at your offerings with fresh set of eyes. You've got your time without customers being there or with lower capacity to be able to really look at it and redesign in ways that are, again, as I mentioned earlier, that you make it a more robust experience, right? That really expands and engages. You make it a more cohesive experience that has a theme, an organizing principle, so that everything hangs together, that there's nothing out of place, right? Get rid of those negative cues that don't fit with that intention that you have. You need to make it a personal experience where you get down to the individual person. One of the things that I, as I've started working in the greater attractions industry for the last 20 years, is I kept emphasizing is that these are mass experiences. Right, you need to get down to the individual, to the family unit, to the person, and understand what is it that they need at this moment in time, and how do we customize? How do we efficiently customize, mass customize the experience down to individuals, which is a matter of knowing who they are and what their preferences are and what they've done in the past. And then it is that dramatic experience, is understanding that work is theater, and what's the drama that we are creating. If you've got a flat experience, it's not going to be very engaging. How do we rise up to a climax and come back down again? And then finally, as I mentioned, transformative experiences. How do we use the experiences that we are staging to help customers achieve their aspirations? Because there's no more economic value you can provide than to help someone achieve his aspirations. And then the third thing to do is now's the time to renew your capabilities, to go beyond what you've been doing and get into new arenas. And this is where digital, I think, is most important, to use that amplification model that I talked about, to embrace digital as a way to enhance your revenue stream rather than just replace a portion of your revenue stream while we are undergoing this crisis. So there's many more capabilities that you can think about. Another book I wrote, Infinite Possibility, Creating Customer Value on the Digital Frontier, is all about how you fuse the real and the virtual. How do you take technology to create the best of both worlds? I mean, reality will always and forevermore provide the richest of experiences. We don't have to worry about jumping into virtuality, full time, where people are going to live in the matrix and so forth, because it can never be as rich as reality. But yet digital technology enables us to do things that we are not simply possible in reality. Mm-hmm. And that includes customizing, because anything you can digitize, you can customize. So if you have this digital overlay of everything that's going on, then you can fulfill that personal aspect as well. Mm-hmm. So these are the key things that I think companies really need to think about right now. And as we continue to recover from this, and then hopefully next year, get back to whatever that next normal is, which again, I think will include much more digital than it is today, then we need to refresh our places, redesign our offerings, and then renew our capabilities.
And you touched on there. So, then thinking about, organizations' experiences that have opened or are going to open, and you touched on their employees. And I think this is quite an interesting point. Your consultancy on stage, you talk a lot about the interactions between frontline staff and consumers, and how even those small touch points, ticket booth exchange, etc., can be really important to driving experience and making, the impression. What we're seeing now is, people reluctant to go near people having to wear masks. We're seeing, consumers potentially with, bad manners, even a bit of violence coming through. We've heard these stories about how customers are, fear brings out some irrational behavior.
Right. There's some horrific things. Yeah.
How do we deal with that? What are your thoughts about how do you train those frontline staff to deliver the best experience, right, when actually that experience has got to be at a distance, and actually not that engaged?
Right. Well, a couple things. So one is you do have to recognize you need to stage a great employee experience in order to give them the wherewithal to stage a great experience for your guests. Mm-hmm. Right. If you don't have a great employee experience, then the chances they're able to do that are not very high, that they're not going to come to it with the same level of commitment, with the same set of capabilities they would if they had this great experience, from the company itself. So all the models, all the frameworks that we talk about in the experience economy to guests apply to employees. About making it robust, about making it cohesive, personal, dramatic, and even transformative. And this is a key. The transformative is probably even more important to your employees. You want to increase their capabilities. You want them to be able to do more and more to provide a better experience. And even the backstage people, the capabilities they have to make everything run and so forth, that needs to be there as well. Mm-hmm. And so I've long said that, but this recent point of view paper I wrote does show you how, right? It does provide how you can think about this, and also think about how to provide, avoid wasting employees' time, provide them with time well saved on the services aspect, provide them with time well spent as an overall employee experience in the particular ways you engage them through training, for example, and then recognize that then is time well invested that makes them better, that makes your business better. Mm-hmm. So then you do have to train them, and the key aspect again is that work is theater. That whenever your workers are in front of customers, they're on stage, and whether they know it or not, whether they do it well or not, they need to act in a way that engages the audience. Now, if you think about I'll just mention a hand magician, right? That is doing tricks right in front of you, right? There's an intimacy there that you can smell his breath, so to speak, in doing that. But that's like what you're talking about, the way things were when you're exchanging tickets and whatnot and putting them directly on the ride. But then when you're more at a distance, right, then it's still theater, even though it's more distant. It means you have to project a little more, you have to use more mannerisms. But it's still, if you recognize that it's theater, that you're on stage, you just have to understand what's the role that I am playing, and how do I characterize that role that is engaging to the audience? And that applies even further if you're digital, not even seeing who who's watching this, like we are right here, right? We have to project. We have to have that same level. It's more like a TV medium or a film medium that you're doing versus a play and so forth. And one of the things I'm always amazed at, my kids got me this Fitbit for Christmas for Christmas a couple of years ago. And when I'm talking this, it's amazing how many steps I get without ever moving my chair,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Because I have to be even more demonstrative than I normally am to keep my energy up in order to give hopefully what is a great performance for the audience.
Yeah.
And then so we actually do have, as you alluded to, a fairly new offering that's a frontline video training offering, and we call it On Stage, right? We recognize that. And so I'll share my screen, maybe one more time to talk about this briefly, right? Is that you are on stage. And so the first module is It's About Time, right? We've taken all our stuff and we've got it down that anybody can understand as a frontline person. And no matter what the overall theme of the place is, what they're trying to do, what can I do in my job to engage the person or the people in front of me? And that's to recognize it's about time, that it's the time that they spend with you, and how do you make that time well spent? The second module is called How You Do What You Do, right? What you do it's again a distinction between services and experiences. Experiences are about our services are about the what, experiences are about the how. It's how you do what you do. Mm-hmm. So, what you do may be, let somebody get on a ride, close the door, complete a transaction, serve a meal, whatever it might be. But how you do that is what enables you to turn any mundane interaction into an engaging encounter. And then the third one is Only and Exactly. This is the part about being personal. How can I get to know this person and do only and exactly what they want? How do I read them in a way that allows me to see what they want to do and respond to them personally? I don't often mention this, but my first job actually when I was in college was as a ride operator at an amusement park. It wasn't actually till like years after the experience economy came out that I sort of remembered this connection I had to the industry, that was my first job. And one of the things I excelled at this amusement park is particularly with people, is I'd like listen to people talk to each other, and I'd listen for somebody to use their name. And then I'd use their name back, and they go like, well, how did you know my name? And I'll, sometimes I'll make up a story like, oh yeah, you were here last summer, right? You do that sort of thing, but it's just to get them, really engaged. And it was something that worked. Right. So, and regularly, and you begin to see that there are people that come back time again, you can remember their name, then they're really impressed by that and become even more cemented to the company and to the offering that you have. And then surprise, right? If you can surprise people, if you can wow them, then you're going to create a memorable event, right? And that'll be core to the experience. And then finally recognize that it's all for one, that it's not just you, that you have an ensemble, that everybody is in this together, and there's things that you can do to help each other out. And when frontline staff get together and they start talking about this, they develop ideas around this, it's amazing what they can come up with. And it all basically again comes down to recognizing that you are on stage, that your work is theater.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I so agree with everything you've just said about stage. It's like curtain up every morning as you open the doors of your attraction.
Exactly. In Disney theme parks, when you go from backstage to on stage, there's always a sign that says you are now on stage.
Yeah.
And I think every organization ought to have that same level of commitment to that distinction between backstage and on stage. And you don't do backstage things on stage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. At the very beginning of our conversation, you said that you don't like talking about the fact that your book has been out for 20 years. But the reality is, Joe, you've been talking about the experience economy for a lot longer than the industry has. You've been championing this shift change in what people want from how they get that value out of their time. So you are a futurist of sorts. You've come up, you recognize these. I know you don't. I know you always say you're not a futurist, but you are. You were. You've been talking about this for a long time, and I'm really interested to know what you see coming in the wake of COVID in, in terms of experiences and attractions? What is the long-term effect here? What are we going to, we talk about the new normal, we talk about kind of how things are going to change. Are we going to go back to where we were? Are we going to take positive change out of this and take that forward with us? What do you think? What's coming?
Economics will tell you that all change happens at the margin. That people say, oh, nobody ever does that anymore. It's like it's old Yogi Berra line. If you know Yogi Berra, baseball player, that he'd say about some restaurant, he says, oh, nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded. Right. Right. Is that nobody goes there anymore means that it has been a shift, that there are some people that don't go there because it's too crowded. And that's what happens. So you got to look at the margin. So a lot of we talked about. So number one, I fully believe physical experiences will be back. People crave them, will want them. We've already demonstrated that. We will not fully be back, however, until after we not only get a vaccine, but we get that herd immunity. But at the margins, there will be people that will continue to be shy. One is we'll recognize, hey, I cannot get the flu. If I not got COVID, I cannot get the flu next winter. I cannot get colds if I wash my hands, if I wear a mask, if I'm careful about not touching my eyes and so forth. And I think you will continue to see more mask wearers in there, and we need to make sure it's not something that we stigmatize in any way, that we accept. When we've got that herd immunity, we accept both that want to do. I think we'll always need to have hand sanitizers around. People will want those. And that business is going to just continue to skyrocket and flow. It would be many years before I would see that go away, if at all. Again, because people will recognize just for the flu season that this makes so much sense to not get the flu. And then there's a permanent shift in terms of people who are buying digitally. That people who never bought before are now buying. People who bought before are buying more digitally. You will see that happening. Even just the tickets. Like why do I want to go up and actually do a transaction with a ticket? Why can't I order that in advance? Why can't I do that on my app? Those sort of app-based things. And I think the other thing that will happen that we alluded to is this digital overlay of the park. Is that through our apps, through things that I think that, not just wayfinding that, but there's a possibility to do what I called an infinite possibility, alternate reality, after ARG's alternate reality games that provide different overlays of what's going on in the park. Like at Galaxy's Edge in Walt Disney World that I visited this winter, you can just view it as a normal theme park, right? And just have fun on the rides. Or you can dress up as if you're from Star Wars and make it cosplay, and now you're really immersed in it. Or you can begin to look for all the digital things that you can do on the app that allow you to make the Millennium Falcon, for example, come alive and start spewing gas, water vapor out of it. That you can do things that affect the communications that are going back and forth. And now you recognize, hey, this is a live Star Wars place, that I can become part of it. And I think that alternate reality overlay of it is something I think more and more attractions should be doing in the future. You may even get to the point where people, particularly when we get, if you're familiar with Microsoft HoloLens, which is an augmented reality, not like Oculus Rift, which is virtual reality, which replaces your eyesight. The HoloLens allows you to still see what's going on, but have a digital overlay of that. And you can see objects that don't exist in reality. Well, they're working on getting that down to glasses. And when that happens, that they're easy to do, I think that will become a big part of physical attractions. That again, as a choice, as an extra fee, right? Here's a way to get an extra fee because you're providing more value for those people that want it, to be able to see things that don't exist in reality on their glasses and have a completely different experience. I think that will be at least a bigger deal in the future. I don't know if it'll be the predominant way that people interact with theme parks, but a couple decades from now, that may very well be.
And I think, in a world where 24/7, we can order almost anything, those things can be personalized for us. Right. As an industry, we've got to be, working so hard to give people that reason to get up off the sofa and want to go out and have experiences. And we know people are social, we know they want to have experiences, but people have got very comfortable at home and very well set up.
Right. Right. And that, that's the other thing too, is that with the digitization, as I do think I'd love to say it's 5 years, it's probably 10, 15 years, which may mean it's 20 years, but at some point in the future, it will be ridiculous to go into sort of like almost any place and they don't know who I am.
Yes.
Right. At least if I've been there before, right. I've had that interaction, or if I'm willing to share data before I get there. And I think it's something that attractions need to understand, is that we're going to have to get down to that individual person and what they want to do right now, know who they are, know their preferences, and not treat them as the masses. You know, it began with the Magic Band at Disney, where they could start to know, okay, who they are, because they've got a band that allows them to signal that they're there at every ride. It was amped up to a whole new level with the Carnival Ocean Medallion. Yes. That was created by the former Disney guy, John Pageant, the Chief Experience and Innovation Officer at Carnival, who worked on that Disney Magic Band, who took some workshops from me in the early 2000s that helped lead to that. And then, but the ability now to, with an IoT device, which you could do on your phone, but there's lots of good reasons on a ship where you don't want to carry your phone around in the pool, for example, that you use an IoT device. But where you do know each individual person and you can respond to them. It can even remember things like when I'm on the pool deck with my kids, my favorite drink is an iced tea with no lemon. But when I'm in the bar with my buddies, it's a mojito. When I'm in the restaurant with my wife, it's a glass of Shiraz. Right. So you can know what it is that they want at this moment in time. And once people get used to that, they're going to demand it elsewhere. And again, whether it's closer to 10 years or 20 years, it's something that every attraction should be thinking about now, that platforms that should be providing, that are doing the ticketing and doing the apps and so forth, they should be thinking about how they add this functionality to identify each individual person and then respond to them and even anticipate their needs as the individual that they are. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're going to see more and more of this coming through, as you say. Joe, it's been amazing. What a interesting conversation. And I think, you know, the message for all of us in the industry is clear that, you know, we need to use this time wisely and really think about what's coming next. Exactly, Eddie. Thank you so much for joining us. And look forward to speaking to you after this for some questions. All right, super. Look forward to it.